I've been interested in researching issues that concern managers and society at large. Recently, I have, in the last couple of years, I have been researching global financial crisis, particularly how organizations have responded to it with the help of a few colleagues. We have written a few research papers, and what we have seen is that despite the enormity of the crisis, we did not really see many changes that organizations have made. And also, the business leaders and stakeholders were not asking for too much of change. The dominant theme was, everything is okay, we just need to go on. And so that is one thing that kind of surprised us as to why is that nobody is asking for any change? The second thing was that we did not find the voice of common man. When I say common man, in the discourse that we have seen, it was mostly the elites. It's the academics and business leaders and regulators and other policymakers who were talking about the crisis, but not those who are in some way affected by it, like consumers and those who have lost jobs. Their voice was not there. So we were wondering, why is it so? At one level, the economic inequality or the rise in economic inequality has been highlighted by the global financial crisis. But despite that, in North America, we have seen a relative calm. In contrast, in Europe, we have seen riots, right? So we were wondering why. So then came Occupy Wall Street, and it became Occupy Everything. It moved to a number of countries and number of cities, and so we thought one more surprising thing for us. So the first surprise was why nobody is asking for change. Second surprise was why such calm, why there is no uproar. And third surprise was that this Occupy movement has highlighted the economic inequality and the role of businesses, but nobody in the business community, either managers or academics, were talking about it. So then we thought, okay, we'll do something. So that is how we started writing and all that. So by now, you know that income and wealth in the world is distributed like this. The top 1% takes a major chunk of it. The next 19% takes an equally major chunk of it, and the rest 80% takes a very minor chunk of it, right? So this has been highlighted by many people. When you look at it, at some level you might feel, it doesn't look too good that people in the bottom 80% are not really well off. But at some level you might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but it doesn't really hit us hard because it's a pyramid. There are people at the top are always going to have more, right? So the pyramid looks very stable, so it doesn't really hit us hard. But the way the income and wealth is distributed, it's actually not a pyramid, but an inverted pyramid, right? So this is how it is actually. So I want us to take a minute to really internalize this picture that it is not a pyramid anymore. It is an inverted pyramid, where the top is taking away a major chunk of the income and wealth. How stable will this pyramid be? Do you think it is stable? It's not going to be stable, right? So how do you make this stable? Any thoughts? Tip it? Okay, so tipping it is not an easy option because it would cause a lot of unrest and a lot of stress on everybody. What else can we do? So this is where the engineer in me tells that you can have some supporting structures, right? So you add some supporting structures. Please note that the supporting structures came from the same pyramid, right? The idea that I would like to convey is that these supporting structures do cost money and effort. It is not that you can just have something come from outside. So these supporting structures are called guard labor by Samuel Bowles, who is an economist at the Santa Fe Institute. So the guard labor are the jobs like policing and monitoring and security roles, which do not add anything productive, but just keep the system in place, right? I was sharing these ideas with an investment banker friend of mine, and I asked him like if he really understood the word guard labor. So he said, yeah, I do. And I asked him like, give me an example. And he said, university professors. You guys don't do anything very meaningful and useful, but you do make money. So, so I would like to disagree with that, but you really can't say anything to investment bankers these days. So now what happens to an organization that is in that society? If you're in the society, as you can see, it is now stable, but you can't really be sure that it is going to be stable. So what do? You try to create a protective cover around you. You try to create a protective cover, so that is going to again cost some money, right? And then you can do one more thing. You can also provide some support to the system, to the society, so that it's not going to fall down, right? Now, what are these? These could be taxes or lobbying. What you do is that you pay taxes, you pay more and more taxes, so that the system could be kept in place through either social security or welfare programs. The other that businesses can do is that they can actually lobby the government for favorable regulations, and so that the system again continues to be in the same place. But what happens if the organization is itself very unequal? So you have one more problem here. That is, the organization might tip over, right? So you create some more structures to keep your organization in place, right? So that it doesn't fall. But the next problem is that the organizations are within the society. So no matter what you do, no matter how much you do, these turbulence in the society or any uproar in the society is going to affect you at some point. So what are these? So for you to maintain even a bit of a stability, you need to invest a lot of resources as an organization. So what are these resources? So to understand, again, I went to the economics. For the first time in my life, for my research, I have started going to economics. I always used to go to business scholars and sometimes to psychology, but this time I had to go to the economists. So Richard Wilkinson has shown that countries where the inequality is very high suffer on human development. So countries where inequality is high, they fare low on human development. There are a number of measures of human development like life expectancy, math and literacy scores, infant mortality, violence, prison population, level of trust, obesity, mental illness, social mobility. So a number of these are the things that actually do also affect organizations. I will come to that in a minute. But what is interesting is that Richard Wilkinson has not only shown it between the countries, but also within the countries. So between the states, within the countries, between the states that have that are high on inequality are low on human development. Whereas if the state is equal, more equal, then they are better on the human development. So what the point that comes across is that it's not the level of income that matters. It is not the average, but the dispersion. So you have to look at the spread of inequality. So now we have seen earlier about the health and social problems and human development issues, right? So I'd like to pick a few that actually have some implications for business. So let's look at the first. When there is high inequality in the society, I think the organizations are going to have high human resources costs. Remember that one of the components of human development is skills, math and literacy scores. So when you have fewer skilled personnel, as a business, you are paying more for the skills. So that is one point. Second thing that might happen is that when there are fewer skilled people, not every organization can hire them. So you may have to hire somebody with a lower skill and then train and develop them. So that is an additional cost. The second is similar to the guard labor, you have high supervision costs. These supervision costs come from the fact that countries in which inequality is high tend to have low on trust. So because of low trust these societal members have, it is difficult for you to form teams. So what you do is you have more supervisors. And then you also have lower mobility in the society. As a result, what you have is you don't see any opportunities for growth and upward mobility, so you're not as motivated in the organization. And sometimes you also have vengeful behavior. You think, this system is unfair, so you try to sabotage the system, sabotage the organization. And as a result of all this, you might have lost productivity. The third point is about the lower revenues. The very fact that the inequality results in a shrinkage of middle class. So when the middle class is not there, then obviously your consumption is going to go down and you're going to have lower revenue. So these are some of the implications for businesses. So what can companies do to manage inequality? So one thing that you can do is that you create more equitable pay structures so that across the levels the pay is spread a bit more evenly. One example that comes to mind is Costco, where they actively manage, they actively track the pay ratio of the CEO to the average worker, and that is less than 10. As a result of this, they see a number of benefits. For example, what they see is lower shrinkage. This is one hard measure. I mean, there are other measures that people say, like loyalty and trust within the employees there. But one measure that we can definitely see in terms of hard number is lower shrinkage. Shrinkage is the theft by employees, or pilferage by employees. So that is very, very much lower in Costco. It is 1/10 of what it is in the industry. And despite maintaining this pay structure, they generate industry-leading returns. And the next thing that companies can do is to invest more on training and development so that you can generate more opportunities for people. And then you also can manage the inequality in the society. One thing that you can do is that you can create a social equity division which would monitor the trends related to equity and see how it affects business, and create some strategies or develop some kind of programs that would address that. One of the examples that comes to mind is Pepsi, not exactly in the economic inequity, but in the case of health. Pepsi has been criticized for selling sugar drinks to people and making them obese. So what Pepsi started doing is that they've hired their bitter critics, like people from World Health Organization and Mayo Clinic, and asked them to develop a healthier menu of products. So one of the products that they have developed is Trop 50, which has half the calories of regular Tropicana orange juice. That product is now making about $100 million per year. So you can create new products and services that would help the people. And finally, you can also provide access and opportunities to people or larger groups in the community. One example that comes to mind is Tata Group, which is an Indian company. I take the example of Tata Group because India and countries like India have seen large amounts of inequality, like they are quite unequal. But businesses have thrived there because they also invested in community development. So Tata Group, for example, has set up educational institutions, research institutions, hospitals for its workers and their families and the communities where they operate. And they've generally spent a lot of their resources on community development. So to summarize, we have always thought that economic inequality is good for business because it increases growth through aspiration. When you see about some amount of inequality, you want to grow up. So what you do is you create new products and services, so it is good for business. But businesses can contribute to increasing economic inequality because it is good for them, and also through narrow focus on short-term profit or shareholders and top executives. So those two are the visible loops on the top, but there are also much larger, much deeper invisible loops that could damage the business arising from economic inequality, that could damage businesses such as guard labor or human development costs. So to counter that, what you have to do is that businesses have to create another loop which would increase or which would improve the economic inequality situation through skill development and opportunity generation, and more importantly, through internal equity within the organization. So with that, I would like to conclude, and thank you again.